got Doug Allen, our interim CEO of TransLink, is going to address you and speak to the results of the plebiscite this morning. We will take your questions right after that. So I'd like to introduce Doug Allen.
Good afternoon, everybody. Thanks very much for coming. With the plebiscite outcome now known, I wanted to cover three things in a brief statement, and then we'll open it up for some questions. First, I just want to talk a little bit about the outcome itself. Then I'm going to say something about what that means in terms of current transit service, and then I'm going to say some things that I think you're going to find reasonably positive about the future. So first, it's very important for all of us in TransLink, but all of us across the province, to respect democracy. When in fact there is high participation, as there was in this plebiscite, and a clear outcome, and there is a clear no outcome, as you're well aware, we must respect that. And we at TransLink do. I just want to talk a little bit about the plebiscite itself. As you know, the province decided we would have a plebiscite. The mayors then built what we thought was a very good 10-year plan, and the plebiscite ran for 2.5 months, as you're well aware. The plebiscite had two parts. One, the investment plan, the 10-year investment plan of the mayors. As I mentioned, it was well developed by the mayors, and it had a second part, which in fact dealt with a 0.5% increase in the sales tax. Based on my experience, as most of you know, I travel the system a lot. I talk to a lot of people about transit. The second part was simply not acceptable to most voters, and they rejected the 0.5%. I know some of you will say, well, this is really about TransLink. It is not. TransLink is not on the ballot. There were two parts, a 10-year investment plan and a tax increase, and it's my view that the public across the Lower Mainland said no to a tax increase. So that's my first part on the plebiscite itself. Let's go to the second part as to where that puts us, because as I think most of you know, we have a world-class transit and transportation system. You don't have to take my view on this. Peer reviews in Canada and abroad underscore that point all the time. We have a very safe system, we have a very reliable system, we have a very efficient system. Notwithstanding that, it's going to be under some pressure as we have 1 million more people coming to this part of the world in the next 3 decades. And so we're well aware that we're going to have real pressures in the system, and we will respond as we always have. We will do our best to deliver the highest quality service we can, notwithstanding the fact that revenue sources will not be growing. In fact, they may be negative, and we do have some cost pressures. We have been in the past very good at extracting efficiencies. You may recall from 2012 to 2014, we extracted about $240 million in efficiencies, and then we up to us to deliver the system as smartly and wisely as we can, given the constraints that we're going to be under. So as I say, we will review all aspects of transit and transportation we're responsible for, and we will do our utmost to deliver the best we can with the resources that are made available. So let me just go to my third part, if I may, and that is on the future. We're very keen to work with the mayors in the province on finding a solution to long-term funding, and we commit ourselves in a very full sense to doing just that. I would also say that the 6,700 people of TransLink, we have 6,700 people that are dedicated to this service, and they will show up for work tomorrow just as they did today, trying to do their very best to deliver the best system possible for the people of the Lower Mainland. I can count on that, you can count on that. However, we will face, as I mentioned earlier, a future that's going to be more difficult. It's certainly going to be more congested until we have this long-term funding sorted out. But we we will do our utmost as an organization and as a major transit and transportation provider. I would simply reiterate, when you look at what our peer reviews look like, we get very good marks across the system. This particular plebiscite, in my opinion, based on my travels over the last many months, was about a tax increase, and it was rejected. And we accept that. That's the democratic process. We will do our utmost tomorrow morning and in the coming weeks to deliver the system as best we can. So with that, I think I'll bring it back to Pauline, and I think she's going to take that question.
Okay, thanks. We've got time, lots of time for questions, so please we'll do them one at a time. Is that Lisa? Yeah, Lisa, go ahead. Yes, go ahead, Lisa.
Mr. Allen, a resounding no to a tax increase would suggest that taxpayers don't trust TransLink and the way that you're spending money.
I think if you look again at what the peer reviews say, they're pretty darn good. If you look at customer survey ratings for our service, they're very good. The first quarter was out just a few weeks ago. Again, showed that customers like our service. In my judgment, again, based on my travels, this was about a tax increase, and voters clearly said no, and we respect it.
You said that you had to do better, though.
Sorry,
That's what you said in your
Sorry, can I just do one at a time?
that
We'll come back to you.
you thought that you felt you had to do better, and you said you have to do better.
Well, and I think we have done better on a number of fronts. That we, in fact, delivered pretty good service. We'll continue to try and be better tomorrow than we are today, but we're facing a different scenario now in terms of the revenue resource base we have, so we're going to have to be more efficient, for sure.
Next question. Yes, Ted?
Yeah, can I ask you a question about, do you not think this campaign was just so terribly run in that, right from the get-go, the idea that there was no B plan, cornered people into the corner and basically pushed back? Do you think the campaign was possibly one of the worst ones ever run in BC?
I will say this about the campaign, something that I learned going through it, and that was that the debate that took place on transit and transportation, certainly during the latter half of the campaign, I thought was pretty good. People started to understand the issues, and I think our facts-based campaign helped in that regard, and there was quite a debate among people across the region. So I would say in that respect, I thought that was pretty good.
So basically for Fairchild TV, since given the sales taxes are all going out, what way TransLink see other funding sources right now?
I think you heard from the mayors and others this morning that they don't have a particular plan in place. We have a funding base that's prescribed, as you know, which is fares, which we're not going to be increasing in the short term. We obviously have motor fuel tax and property tax. Those are not growing in our particular case. So we're going to be under funding pressure. And we, in fact, are simply going to be as efficient as we possibly can to deliver what the people need.
Any management change?
So I guess we're going to take one question at a time. Does anyone else have before we come back to Lisa? Go ahead,
What
Lisa.
the mayors had suggested today at the press conference that a governance change at TransLink is critical. Will that be done? Will you be reviewing your operations?
As you know, I'm the CEO of TransLink, and my job is to lead this organization. I'm not in charge of governance. You have to ask the province and the mayors, and really our board of directors about that. I'm about leading this organization under all circumstances, and we shall do that.
Yes, okay, go ahead.
Mr. Allen, talk about the efficiencies of TransLink, but I believe Calgary is now scrapping its version of the Compass card. That whole fiasco with the Compass card, I mean, is that still going to go ahead with you?
I don't think you're seeing this in the current light. By the end of the summer, we're going to have 230,000 people on Compass. 230,000. So we've done this incrementally. We've done it in phases. We've looked at what happened in Chicago. We followed what happened in Sydney. I think we've been very responsible, and I just look at West Coast Express in the last month. I thought it rolled out exceptionally well. We hope to continue that path on a phasing approach.
But that is 2 years late. You're saying 200,000 people, but that's 2 years late and $20 million more than the original budget.
Remember that there isn't a system that I'm aware of anywhere in the world that's put together a compass card equivalent in 3 years. If you look at Sydney, they signed their deal about the same time we did, and they're just finishing as we are. There is nobody that would do it in 3 years. Did we make a mistake in 2013 saying we could do it in 3? Yes. It takes time, you do it on a phased basis, and you do it responsibly, and that's precisely what we're doing.
Any other questions?
Assuming there is going to be no more funding in the near future, or any areas that jump out to us, areas where cost savings can be made?
Well, we have to review everything. It's that simple. We know what the voters said. It's very clear, and so we will review where efficiencies can best be extracted while keeping service levels as high as possible.
Mr. Allen, will there be service cuts, and if so, will you be also looking at your administration?
As I
And
said,
cutting back?
we will look at all aspects of TransLink to see where we can gain efficiencies. It's very straightforward. We're doing that on an ongoing basis. We were very successful between 2012 and 2014, and that's the challenge, and we're up to the challenge. We, in fact, will be very keen to find efficiencies that are smart and in the interests of transit users and the general public.
How about changing the public sector?
That's what you mentioned earlier about your support for TransLink, but I think a lot of us hear from our listeners and viewers a great frustration with TransLink. So when you're saying, that things are fine, do you think that there's going to be a frustration with the ridership saying you're not listening to us?
One can always do better. We've always said that, and that's what you strive to do. But earlier this week, we had the Imperial College London here to give us the 2014 results on our bus company. And again, they were extremely good. That's been the case for several years. So TransLink runs a good system. I've always said, can we do better? Of course. Do we have a challenge now because of the plebiscite outcome? Of course. But we're up to the task.
Any other questions?
Any change in public sector in short run? Any changes in the public sector?
As I mentioned earlier, we'll look at everything, and we'll look at everything that makes sense and address the future in a very responsible way.
I have one.
Okay, one last question.
About the Bridge, because that falls under TransLink, so we've heard that that's going ahead, so is the funding going to change on that? How is that project going to move forward?
In other discussions I've had in the last few weeks, we always said that things that are underway, whether it be the rehabilitation of Patella or whether that's the integration of the Evergreen line, those things go forward because they were previously announced and previously funded. We're talking about things that are not committed that we have to address now.
I'll take one last question if anybody has one.
Can I ask, how much money did TransLink spend on this whole plebiscite? And at the end of the day, if it's $7 million, people just dismiss that as a lowball estimate. But at the end of the day, you got nothing. You basically spent $7 million, and you could have bought maybe half a dozen buses with that.
You may recall that TransLink funded the allocation that went to the Mayor's Council, and I think we should direct that question to them. There was obviously money spent, but the Mayor's Council put out a fairly detailed release on exactly what they spent it on, and I'm sure they'd be pleased to discuss that fully.
Thanks very much, everybody. Thanks for your time.